Starting the recording. Cueing transition. Stop music.
Really Krett? Really Krett? Oh my god.
Yo, what up? I'm Kret. That's F dot, and it's that time of the month. Tom, I got you a gift.
What'd you get me, Kret?
It's 6 months, man. Happy anniversary.
Oh, thanks, Kret. What a nice guy.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. I'll give you a thumbs up. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. So now for the other 3 weeks, I get to be a jerk to you, and it'll be great.
That is how it works. That is how it works. So we are in week number 8 in the SPL. So it's finished. And it was interesting.
One sec. So Hangouts was lagging me, so you're a still image now, and that should fix it. Anyway, SPL week was interesting. So this is, I guess, the most notable thing is that TSM roster changes happened.
Right.
And,
Yeah, we had the Boosh return.
Mm-hmm. And so Boosh getting benched was like, I want to say it was kind of out of nowhere. Like, Divio's getting benched, I think a lot of the public didn't really understand, and it was just sort of the thing where, like, Ionic says this, and you're like, okay, I guess it's that. But the team was having trouble, right? Like,
Right.
a roster change is like, oh, well, they were having trouble, they made a roster change, whatever. Boost just sort of got benched or stepped down kind of out of thin air. Like, TSM was doing fine.
Yeah, I mean they had a couple of losses and they were like, well, Bush, you don't play, so see ya. But he was still performing, and I mean, I don't know. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess, right?
I guess if it ain't broke, but you want to fix it anyway because you think it'll be better, and then it's worse, you could go back to what you did originally, which is what TSM did, and it sucked. It was awful for the first game of the week.
Yeah, I mean, so I had this split the other way around. I said that we were going to see COG beat TSM and then Elevate. Like, TSM really had to shit the bed. That's exactly what I said for Elevate to win 2-0.
And for the record, I don't think TSM really did shit the bed. I don't think that's the right expression for what happened.
And see, that's the thing. I don't think that's what went down. I think that they definitely underperformed, but I think Elevate also stepped it up.
Yeah, and I actually talked to Narian, the coach for Elevate, who's a good friend of mine. We coached a Chinese team together last year, and he was like, yeah, man, my team just gets nervous during the SPL, so we went in the match and we were like, all right, it's just a scrim. It doesn't matter. And honestly, because it's a weekday match, you can sort of get that feeling a little bit more.
Right,
so I guess that worked for them. But then they go to play in the weekend, and they lose to AFK pretty hard, which is not too surprising. Oh, sorry, they lose to... Well, I guess they lost to AFK, who is now Envy. So that's something that we'll talk about later.
Ooh.
But, okay, so here's the thing. Would you say they lost to Envy, or would you say they lost to AFK? Because it's the same group of players, but at the time they were AFK, and now they're Envy.
I mean, it's all the same. It's interchangeable. Like, I guess you would say, if you want to be technically correct, they lost to AFK for legal purposes and for business purposes. But I mean, if you're talking about the sport of the game and not the business of the game,
yeah,
I think you say Envy.
Right, because that's just sort of the thing. I remember when we first started our scrim partnership with AFK. They were Melios Moror for like the first 2 weeks, so I get like my spreadsheets all set up to like track who's winning and what people are picking and whatever, the normal stuff. And then they changed their name. I have to go through and like switch it all. And now I'm just keeping them as AFK. I don't even care.
I know who this team is.
Yeah.
Envy's a pretty sweet organization. It's a big one. Scott Gandhi has followed them for a long time and always speaks highly of them, so that's a good sign off for me.
Yeah, they're one of the bigger. Yeah, I was talking about it with the team, and Omega was like, yeah, they're one of the bigger COD organizations. It's like Optic, Envy, and then FaZe, I think. So I mean, it's dope. Hell yeah, Envy.
Super excited about that. AFK wasn't a bad sponsor, or actually, that's the correction. That's the real conversation. That so, well, it's not a big one, but when a team gets acquired by a company
Yes.
or an organization, it's not a sponsorship. So a sponsor is somebody that provides money or tools or whatnot. The team receives sponsorships from various companies that they have partnerships with, and then the team is what signs or acquires players.
Yeah. I think it's a interesting little situation of semantics because, like, you're right. They're a team that is playing under an organization. They're not a team that is sponsored by an organization. That is not
Mm-hmm.
accurate. But you would say a team that is not playing under an organization would be an unsponsored team, like the Myrmidons.
Right. They're unsponsored, and it's possible to get.
English.
I mean, so here's something funny.
Yeah.
You could technically be you could get acquired by an organization and still be unsponsored.
Right, and you can not be
I
acquired
could
by an organization and be sponsored, which I suppose is where Eager is, right?
Yeah, that's where Eager is, and exactly. I could also just create like F. LLC and have like the F dots and just say, all right, you guys get to wear my T-shirt,
Mm-hmm.
and I give you no money, and nothing happens. You're unsponsored.
Yeah, and hey man, if you somehow had ownership over an SPL slot, that's a pretty good deal for them anyway. Right? Like,
Yeah, not a bad one.
I mean, sort of like cognitive gaming at the start of the split. Cog had that SPL slot. It was theirs. And so when DJ Pernicus and Aurora got it, like, that's a really good negotiation position for Cognitive because they're saying, well, we'll put you in the SPL. And the team's like, okay, we'll play for you. There you go. And so it's interesting a little bit what goes on behind the scenes, and it's really cool to see a new big sponsor in Smite for one of the or a new big organization in Smite for a team that was a little homegrown, but like not really having the same legacy as like cognitive gaming.
Right, yeah. So AFK was owned by the owner of Cognitive Gaming, his brother owned AFK.
Yes.
And so they were, I mean, really, they're separate people, right? And it was operated under such a different. It was a separate team completely. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
David
they were
has
new.
openly said that like he doesn't get choices in certain things. Like he's not a member of the voting board for that team because he owns Cognitive. So,
Yeah, so I don't know the details of AFK, but
mhm.
everybody at AFK, from my personal experience, was pretty awesome. So I've assumed that they had a good setup. But Envy is sort of like one of the top of the crop. AFK is just sort of getting off the ground. They're involved in Smite, and I think a couple of other games, but I'm not too sure. But Envy is already very very established, and it should be a great move for the guys.
Yeah, so excited to see what they can do with that. If you bought AFK t-shirts, buy more t-shirts. That's a great thing about switching organizations, right? Is you get to sell your t-shirts all over again.
Oh yeah, t-shirts.
And mugs. Um, and I guess I might as well mention it. Weekend actually getting a new logo, which I think looks a little bit better. It's a little more. It's more than just his old Circuit tail, right? Like it's a little bit more. It's more. His brand now is like visibly more than just I play Circuit, which is cool.
It's a scorpion.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that's cool.
There was I remember he tweeted out. I didn't know he picked one. I
Hmm.
liked I liked the one that didn't really look like a scorpion. It was just kind of like a diamond. I liked it, but he went with this cool scorpion.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, so part of the thing about esports, and we've talked about this a few times, is that, like, one of the ways in which you make money is streaming and Twitch and YouTube and branding yourself. And part
Hmm.
of branding yourself is having a logo. But at the same time, it's kind of weird when everyone under the sun has a logo.
I mean, not really.
I don't know. It's
just the world. I mean, that's just the world we're in now. Like,
I mean, your logo is just your fucking face.
I mean, I don't have one out. That's so I don't.
Yeah.
But I would totally like if I launched
I
into
guess it's
something
just sort
larger,
of
I would.
like I feel like that's a weird process. Maybe not at the time, but like if you just sort of step back a little bit, you're like, I'm inventing a logo for myself. Not like
Oh, it's so
a
fucking weird.
company that you own, not like you doing, like you're like
It's so weird. But I mean, then you also you gotta realize the reality of it is that like
you're a brand, you are a company. It's weird.
exactly like
Have
the
fun with
existence of
taxes.
you. Yeah, I mean, well, taxes aren't so bad, but it's just the I don't know. Yeah, you're making yourself a product, and in doing
Mhm.
so, you have to be able to represent yourself in a single, succinct picture in certain situations, right? Like
Yeah.
when they tell you when you go to a job interview, they tell you beforehand to be able to summarize you or what you do in like 3 to 5 sentences, right? Well, when you're just flashing online and on Instagram and stuff, and your avatar is what follows you around, you need to be able to make that same impression
hmm
with a still image.
It
So,
also gives you something to put on a t-shirt, which I think is an interesting. So,
oh, that's
uh,
the prime. That's the prime reason.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And so there's a few ways to go about that, and I don't know why we're talking about t-shirts, but let's go with it, right? So recently I saw Mesmerize's t-shirt, which is just like it's an Ares joke, right? It's like Ares, and he's making a face, and it says cons low damage because of course. I think that's just like still in the game, like as a joke. Everyone knows
It's
Ares
got to
does
be.
not do low damage. Um, but cons low damage, and it's like so that's just sort of a thing that's like a joke, and people could maybe identify with. And I guess that's sort of a different approach than like Moji's shirts that she showed recently. Just had a logo that was like a bird, and it was like kind of cool and artistic. So you either
Yeah.
knew what it was, and that was dope, or it was just a cool shirt, and that's dope. So it's interesting to see the different ways people go about branding themselves and marketing themselves when outside of professional players in Smite right now don't just play the game. Some of them do, like Omega, but a lot of them focus on other ways to brand themselves and support themselves, which is really important.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have different avenues for different things, and that's really how you sustain yourself in this world. I mean, that's this world meaning esports, and it's you know, you got to be able to really differentiate and do two different things.
Definitely. So I guess let's loop back around and get back to the SPL. We saw TSM play this week. Their first game sucked. Elevate beat them 2-0. Week of free FP. Um, Classic. And then they kind of destroyed Cognitive. And I think that was the game that everyone was expecting them to lose, right? Because it's like a TSM with like a new roster swap. After a roster swap, they're probably disoriented. They're maybe still
Hmm.
on tilt. And Cog's a good team. Cog's a team that can take games off of anyone. But they didn't this time.
Yeah, I mean, I really had a cog pegged 2-0 easy.
Yeah.
Like I thought these games were going to be won in 25 minutes or less
Right.
by cog, and I was very, very confident on that. But it was interesting. I mean, that just goes to show you that the level of strength in adaptation that Team Solomon has. Because so they lost to Elevate real hard, like
hmm
really hard, and then they go home and well, what do they have, like 2 days worth of time to really like fix those issues, and then they come back and then they just win, and they're like, "Yep, we're TSM. What's up?"
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it was a wake up call, or maybe Elevate showed them their weaknesses and they covered that up, or maybe they prepared for Cog and not for Elevate. It's really hard to say. I think a lot of the onus is more on TSM playing up in their second match of the week.
Yep.
Um, And I think a little bit is also like Cog is an unpredictable team. You know, you go up against them and you're like, I don't know what the fuck they're gonna pick. But
Hmm.
I feel like they're also unpredictable from the other side. Is like you don't know who the fuck how they're gonna perform, right? Like I feel like there's a lot of wiggle room for COG players performing really well or not.
Yeah, and that's always been the case, and I think that that's the if every team has a single problem that they need to work on, which is absolutely not the case, but if that's where you're going, I think that's the largest issue that COG's
Mhm.
always had, and that you see them whether it's conscious or unconscious, they like week by week they get more and more consistent. Still, that's still their like thing to work on. That's their Achilles heel. But coming into this, I mean, you're right. Nobody really turned up for COG in that sense against Team Solo Mid,
Sure.
but I don't know. It was just a very interesting week for TSM because don't forget they're going back to original positions that they played for over a year. So you you get back on you like come back to the original spot and you have to like relearn it just a little bit, but once you get the wheels going it's very easy and it snowballs from there. That's kind of how I feel. It was just so rapid fire where they played against Elevate did fantastic and Team Solomid didn't, so it's a little bit of plus, a little bit of minus. And then you're just like, all right, well, this didn't happen, this happened, this didn't happen, this needs to happen. We know how to do it. Let's just do it.
So Eonic on Twitter, October 4th, which is 2 days ago, Sunday says, "Good game to Cog. Didn't hear a single complaint out of Bickham, even though he was getting camped. Feels good, man."
Yeah.
That tells you why Divios was benched.
Yep.
Because the moment he starts getting camped, he starts complaining. Apparently, the team felt that was toxic, and so that was their issue with the player. Now let's talk about Divios, because Divios is a god. Divios is probably one of the single best Smite players in sort of all around play, right? Like in terms of mechanics and positioning, and he's just so good.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah, it's pretty
player will
good.
be back. And I think he's in a
Oh, without a
unique
doubt.
position, which is really cool, is that, well, roster lock come like breaks after Worlds, right? So
Uh-huh.
it like he's locked to TSM until then. So Divios has 3 months to learn whatever role he wants. Could continue playing solo, could
That's
be
true.
anything else.
I didn't
And
even
then
think
he
about
could just be
switching roles.
like, yo, I'm Divios. I'm playing this role now. Put me on your team. And he could probably get on our top four team instantly.
Yeah, I'd say so. I, I,
At
I
the
would say
very
so.
least, this player should not be going to the Challengers Cup. Like, you
No.
will replace someone to put Divios on your team. Easily.
Easy peasy. Devios is, and that's the thing. Being labeled toxic or whatever, it's not like a mark of. It's not gonna. You're not blacklisted.
Well, it depends. You're not blacklisted if you're already fucking Divios. Like, he'll be fine.
Sure, yeah, and of course the level of which people are willing to put up with your shit
Yes.
has everything to do with how good you are. So that's definitely a thing. But also just the conversation because what's toxic to one group of people might not be as bad to another group of people. What's considered loud and bossy might be considered good leadership. So don't forget there's also like that variance. And even if,
Totally.
from the sounds of it, complaining that he gets camped, right? Just from what Ionic said, that is not you can't really spin that into a positive, but you can definitely sit there and say like, yeah, you know what? That doesn't really bother me. If he wants to whine, he can whine. I don't really give a shit. And if that works for you, then that works for you. So different things work within different teams. Different environments are very different.
Mhm.
I can guarantee you that there are enough cultures within like one region of the SPL, there are probably 3 out of 8 teams that every player just could not play on, based on just like how everything works around, because people are so different.
Oh, they totally are. Now, special shoutouts to Yannick, by the way. Yannick's a cool ass dude. So shoutouts to him for throughout this entire thing being terrible at PR, so we actually got to see what was happening for once. Because everything Yannick tweeted about the incident and like his Reddit thread, he didn't do that the PR sort of way, right? Like he just sort of said what was going on from his perspective. I respect the hell out of that. I wouldn't do that myself, probably.
Exactly.
Though we really love Divios as a player, we have chosen to bench him for non-performance-based reasons, and we'll be playing with Bickham for the remainder of the season. And, like, you don't know what the fuck is going on when someone says that.
Yeah, and I mean, I probably land somewhere in between. Like, one of the things that I really value is, like, I always want to be, straight up and honest. Of course, sometimes you have to, like, dress it up a little bit. But I respect where Yana came from. It was just like, so, these are the cards in my hand. This is what I'm going to do because this was the situation. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next week. Make sure to tune in on Thursday for our SPL match.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so, like, it was a single tweet. And sure, he followed it up with a snarky little, like, haha, Bickham didn't whine, right?
Yeah.
But it was a single tweet. It was just like, yep, this is the deal. Peace out. See you later. Right?
Yeah.
Like that.
And it wasn't slander. Like, it was just like, this is the situation. Or at least, like, if someone tweeted that about, like, Get Fisher, you might have said it was slander because the guy hasn't established himself, right? But, like,
Sure.
it's Divios, so, like, if Shing can be known to be Shing and continue to have a career, Divios will be fine.
Yeah, Shing's another player that...
Yeah.
It's very interesting. 2 different scenarios here, I feel. So Shing is replaced on the side of denial.
Yes.
Right? Taking his place is Sikandara.
Right, Homofey.
The homie previously known as the Iron Homie.
Yeah. See, the joke is that Fe is iron on the periodic table. That's not
It's one of my favorites. Like, it's one of my favorites by far.
Yeah.
Because so for the longest time, I'm always on a crusade of correct pronunciation, right? And so Homofey, right? It looks like the name is Homofey, and I was like, all right, his name is Homofey, but like I never talked to him about it, so I could never bark at people.
And I always said Homie Fe, partially to piss some
just
off,
to piss me off.
but
no, not even partially. We're saying like 90%.
80%.
I don't know. How
85.
All right, I believe 87.
Right.
But in any event,
86. This is my final offer. I'm walking away.
86 and a half. So I finally asked Homie Effie, excuse me. I finally asked Sikandara. I was like, yo, you pronounce your name Homofey. Can you please tell this nerd, like, that's not, Homie Effie is just stupid. That's obviously not how it is. And he was like, dude, it's Homie Effie. And I was like, no! I told Krett, I feel like I told Krett and logged off of communication services for a week.
Yeah.
I just, like, did not want to deal with the fact
he started to, like, pack up and move to the center of Texas.
Dude, this was, like, the height of when we were casting Homie Effie games together, like,
Oh my God,
in the
every
Challengers
fucking
Cup.
And it would be great because,
man.
like, throughout the cast, you'd be saying Homofey and I'd be saying Homie Effie, and then we'd get confused, and I'd start saying Homofey, and you'd start saying Homie Effie. It was great. Good times. But he's a pretty good player. Excited to see what he can do on Denial. I think, not trying to be a dick, but I think, like, in terms of top-end skill, it's a downgrade. I think Shing is a stronger player. But
Sure.
Homofey is more consistent and might contribute to a better team environment, so I respect the decision, and he can certainly grow as a player and become someone who's really, really scary. Obviously, it didn't work out for Denial this week,
Yeah.
but,
I mean, so I think it's interesting. I agree with your analysis that Shing probably has a higher top speed, but is
Yeah,
less
exactly.
consistent in getting up there. And that's really the thing for me is that you can only say inconsistent for so long. I mean, Shing has had one or two solid games all freaking split. And it's rough. It's rough. I don't know what's going on. Shing has always been, from a fan's perspective, just watching the players and their personalities. Shing has always been one of my favorite players in the SPL. I
Yeah.
think his streams are hilarious, and again, from the outside looking in, he's just a great character to follow and root for. And
But he also hasn't found a home in over a year now.
exactly, and so like that that makes me think, like
Yeah.
what's going on, what's the truth of the situation, and of course, until you're in their comms in their living room, so to speak, you'll never really know the situations, and that's probably a good thing. But just it's sad as a fan because you're like, Shing, you're good at the game sometimes. I don't know what's going on right now, but what's up, man? Something just seems up. And it's weird because we haven't seen Shing on top of his game in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is something you would say, but like when it's not on the court performance, it's got to do with something off the court, you know? And it's
Right.
not saying that like he's, sad because his dog is getting old or whatever, but
I'd be
like
sad.
I would be sad too. I'd probably play Smite worse, but like it's just working on those things, your attitude, your communication, the way you talk to your team, not going on tilt. Maybe it's something there. I haven't teamed with the guy, so I have no perspective on that, but I do wish him all the best, and hopefully he does find a home because he's a great player. I want to see him succeed, um but he hasn't found
Yeah,
it, and he hasn't been there
exactly.
since he left Snipe, and yeah, there
Yeah,
was Snipe
Snipe
at the
was
time.
really the
Yeah,
last time, even when Shing joined, and I mean, I don't really know how to
Shingnatas.
explain it. Yeah, I don't even know how to explain
Yeah,
it. It's just a certain feeling where Shing on Snipe at the time, it just made sense. Like it felt right. It's like seeing. I don't know who your quintessential. Everybody's moved around so much.
yeah,
It used to be like Zapman and Laz's and Dignitas colors, right? Like
uh huh,
that's what it used to be. I don't know if there's I guess the Titan guys, right?
yeah. Now one of the
Ataraxia in Titan colors, like
well, even then, like I was gonna say, yeah. Now they're one of the oldest teams in the consistent roster, but they aren't anymore. Rip Confrey.
well,
What
it's
has
a
it been
single
with these
member.
2 weeks?
I don't know. Yeah,
Well, but same with
Conferee's
like Cloud
gone.
Nine, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have to think about it, but I don't think there's been a team with a consistent longer roster for that long in the current season.
Oh no. Yeah, so
You're starting
it's
to
an
approach the point where no, it's not AFK because Cyclone was after Worlds. Yeah, I have no idea.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's and it makes sense, right? And what I do like is that they're not full
Fnatic,
on
Fnatic,
roster
Fnatic. There
swaps.
we go. Fnatic is the last team with a consistent roster for a long period of time.
Yeah, Fnatic always. How long was Captain Twig down for? Like 5 weeks?
What do you mean?
Like Captain Twig. I mean, I don't know. I don't think anybody made no bones about it. Fnatic was losing when Captain Twig wasn't doing well,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's doing well,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing swell. How long did he was in a slump for like 4 weeks, man?
I think it was still like maybe Twig is a little bit of an EU Shing where he's sort of inconsistent in streaks, but
Sure.
I want to say that was residual from the role swap between Zeros and Twig.
Yeah, I think Twig just didn't. Zero's always played mages, and that was his thing, right? And Twig, like, well, he's number one at some point in Joust, right? Like,
Yeah.
so he could play all the gods, but Zero's played mages, so his swap was probably a
Yeah,
little
he
bit
played Vulcan jungle, and then they're like, wait, we could put the Vulcan in mid.
What?
Oh.
Dude, I remember him
Genius!
winning. He won with the Vungle. I was so happy.
It
I
was
played
funny
so much
because
Vulcan Jungle.
it totally wasn't good. It was
It
just
was
Zero's
so
being God with that character.
It was so. It was like, all right, well, we got the Vulcan in the jungle. He's gonna go gank and like actually hit the dude with the ult.
Yeah,
And
he
then
actually
meatball him for the
ganked. It
tag.
was weird.
It was so funny. But so yeah, basically I started it off to commend Fnatic on sticking to it. You know, it seems like, especially in this last week and two or 3 weeks, that everybody has quick trigger fingers, and I don't think that's that's the case. I think a lot of thought went into these roster changes.
Seemingly
But
quick trigger fingers.
exactly, and I think it's worth a sort of nod of the head to Fnatic that they stuck through it. I think they like having faith in your current roster and understanding is just as valuable as understanding when something needs to be excised, right?
Yeah. You used a big word and I got confused and stopped listening.
So yeah, 10 points to Fnatic on that one. And they're sort of seeing the benefits of it. What are they, number 2 now in Europe?
Yeah, I mean they're doing pretty well. Obviously,
they're number 3.
Epsilon.
Paradigm won 2 more games.
Well, it's just sort of that 1, 2, 3 in Europe, right? Like it's Paradigm, Fnatic, and Epsilon, and then like fourth is like on paper I want to say it's Titan, but I don't think it's actually Titan. It's weird. Titan is.
You think it's Dignitas? You think it's Dignitas?
No,
Do you think they make the jump?
I think it's London Conspiracy by lack of Titan.
Okay, I feel you.
Like I feel like it should be Titan, but if it's London Conspiracy, I'm like, well, that's Titan's fault.
Yeah.
And you know, that's not
similar.
like so London Conspiracy, man. London Conspiracy is okay, so the storylines in the EU. Epsilon undefeated until they weren't. Fnatic, a veteran team that's fighting to keep their edge. Paradigm. They're sort of like random. They're really fucking good, but like you kind of don't know what you're going to get each week. Titan, they're on the downtrend. Team Dignitas, they had a lot of trouble, but they're starting to come back up. Myrmidons, they switch their jungler every 3 games. And Justice have been doing the same thing for like 4 splits. But what the fuck? What the fuck is London Conspiracy's story?
London Conspiracy.
They're just like there. They're just like 5 or 4, and you're like, well, I guess they're in that spot.
Yeah, I mean they're never the worst team in the league, right?
No, and they're like not even close.
And they're also not even close to the best team in the league.
No, they're really not.
But they are fantastically mediocre, Kret.
Yes.
They are fantastic at being mediocre. God damn, do I like to watch them beat low-end teams and occasionally take a game off the top. It's fun!
I do like London Conspiracy, and I really like the players, too. I mean, Emilzy is one of my favorite players. Shaggy Tank is... It's funny because Shaggy Tank is like the ADC that got so much hype, and then it just sort of peaked, and then like he's still really good, but the hype just sort of like vanished, and it's like,
yeah,
dude, he's still really good, but forgot about Shaggy.
Yeah, I mean, I love to watch Shaggy because that's the thing. He just sometimes, well, holy shit, that's Shaggy Shank, but it's not consistent at all, right? It's just. It's sort of like, I don't know, like a drag race where either you hit it and it's really dope or the car just backfires and doesn't leave. And I feel like that's the story a lot of the games with London Conspiracy in general. I've grown to really like watching Asagi Sandal play, and I give London Conspiracy a lot of points for having a true sub in Cherio.
Yeah, I love Cherio as a player. I think he's so good.
He's so good, and my favorite was the conversation that we had with him after one of the games. He came on, and I asked him, I forget the exact question, but it was something about like being a sub and asked to play different roles. And he answered me very like almost confused, like, "There's only one sub on a team. Of course I would practice all of the roles. We scrim and I play everything. What like?" Why are you asking me this? Isn't this what everybody does? And like, Cloud9 didn't even have a sub at that time. And Cherio was just like, yes, this is my role, man. And it was just really cool that he views his job to be able to play all 5 roles at a high level.
You know what I'm waiting for, though?
And that's cool.
I'm waiting for Asagi Sandal to just cut off like 80% of his name. And just be
Sagi?
like, no, just be like Sand. or ASOG or something.
ASOG.
Yeah. Just not
what
a
about
soggy sandal. Because, like, I've casted. I have no idea how you make a soggy sandal sound hype.
you
The
don't?
only thing you can say is a soggy sandal putting the foot down. That's it. And it's not even good. It's just kind of.
Then I think of a a B grade movie, right?
Yeah.
It's Godzilla, but instead of Godzilla, it's Bart, and he's just stomping through with these wet sandals.
Yeah. And then at the end of the movie, Bart and Dazer are getting a fist fight, and his sandals were socks and sandals.
Oh my, yeah, that would
yeah.
be that's where Soggy Sandal goes. But yeah, Dimmy did it, and I know he's in the chat.
Yes.
Shout outs to Ninja Dimmy. And it's funny because I didn't even think Ninja Dimmy is not even on my radar of like
It's not
horrible.
Yeah,
name.
no, it's not a bad name, but Dimmy is so much better.
Right, it is. And I remember him saying like, you know, the reasoning was like going to conventions and stuff and being like, yeah, I'm Ninja Dimmy.
Yeah.
I just sort of felt dumb. So I just left it at Dimmy and now I'm cool. Like, don't you sit there and go like, yeah, man, my name is Asagi Sandal, and go, wow, you're not gonna let me buy you a drink. Like, that's
like
just
you
a
get
weird
to
situation.
maybe it's because he hasn't been to a LAN event yet, and so hopefully we see him at Super Regionals. Probably will, since they're team 4 or 5, and like everyone's at the bar. I don't even know if he's old enough to drink in America. Everyone's at the bar wearing their jerseys, and you got like Real Zax, and you got. I don't think anyone from Paradigm is old enough to drink. And you got like Glasses, and you got like Incon, and you got like Allied, and then it's just a soggy sandal, and you just no. It's not gonna look good on a jersey. You know what does look good on a jersey? Shockingly, is Polar Bear Mike.
Polar Bear Mike.
I think it looks really good on a jersey.
I would love him to be PBM.
Yes. Season 2, I want him to change his name to PBM. That's such a good name.
That's what most people are calling him.
Yeah,
anyway, PBM.
And like it's such a good Dota name.
It is, right, and it's funny because like you know how when you're casting you just wind up calling people like shortened reason, and you don't sit there before the game and sit there and go, this is what I'm going to call this guy, unless their name is something that you have to do that for.
Right.
So with Polar Bear Mike, all of the casters, it just sort of came out in the sense that like nobody was like, yeah, Polar Bear Mike's really long to say, so just say PB. We all just kind of like, and PBM comes like that's just what it was. So we've been calling him Polar Bear Mike, and it's fun. We know what my favorite name swap in esports was. So there was a Smash player. There's a Smash player. His name is PPMD.
Right.
And the reason was when Smash started getting when things started getting more exciting, and I don't know the exact story, but the idea was that he changed that. The player changed it to PPMD because he wanted it to be a little bit more serious than his previous handle, which was Dr. PP.
Right.
So he changes it to PPMD, which is fun because the people that like know him from back in the day, that's like a throwback to them. It's an interesting bit of trivia for when, later on in the future. And then, as a passerby.
Sounds good.
Exactly. Like as a passerby or an influencer, it's like, oh yeah, it's PPMD, no big deal. Right? And that's the same thing. Polar Bear Mike isn't exactly like a horrible situation. But PBM is just better, easier on the eyes, easier on the mouth, and like, it's still his name. It's just shortened. It's fun. So
now Chad is bringing up that you can't have 3-letter names, but I'm sure there's a way around it. Like, either he could be like, yo, Hi-Rez, I'm a pro player, and see if, like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't break the name if an admin is just like, yeah, your name is PBM now. Or maybe he just, like...
You think I could have F period?
I have no idea. You should try. But even if he can't do that, you just get one of those crazy-ass Russian characters, put it after the name, and it looks good or whatever, right? Like, there's a way to make it work. Maybe it's, PBM and then like a dash or something, whatever. A soggy sandal.
Here's what you do. You put a lowercase x. You go x PBM x.
No, I think it would look bad.
And then put a 420 at the end.
No, it should just be x PBM. But actually throw a 3 in there. But Asagi Sandal does not have that option because his name is just Ass.
Wait, do you mean the abbreviation
Yeah,
or his name is
Asagi Sandal
actually
is
Ass?
Ass. Like, it's really bad.
That was a 1-2 punch. Damn, that's the truth
I
of the
didn't do
matter.
it. Like, that's what Asagi said. It's not good, man. Poor
I
guy.
guess he could be assy. No, he can't be assy. That's even worse.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I mean.
All right, so let's shift gear to something a little bit more SPL related. In our game versus Denial, game 1, Dare to Care played Thor, and he killed it. He didn't die.
Right.
But what he did do is he built 55% CDR. Yeah. Do you happen to remember the item build?
I am not going to the website.
I will tell you the item build. I will tell you the important parts of the item build. He got boots because you buy boots. And he got a Jotuns because you're Thor. You buy Jotuns. And he got a Mail of Renewal because it just got nerfed for a fucking reason. It's broken. Right? And then he got a Spirit Robe because their team had a Freya and a new Wa, which means that they're stunning you or banishing you and then blowing you up with magic damage. And you're going to be at 0 protections because it's a Freya with a spear and a demonic grip, and Nuwa minions take off 25 protections each. So you get a Spirit Robe because you cannot reduce the 15 flat penetration or protections, which I think
Makes sense.
think is worth like 60 protections. I could be wrong about that, but like basically they're just really, really valuable because they're not protections. It's flat damage reduction. But he still built 55% CDR. How do you analyze that? Right? Like, it's so weird, because he's breaking one of the rules of the game, but he's right.
Right, and I think it winds up being a situation like Soul Leader on Hunters, in the sense that it's not optimal when you look at a single
Hell,
column.
it's not even the point, right? Like,
Exactly. If you look at a single column in the shit I need spreadsheet for when you're making your build, right? If you look at a single column, then you're right. The Soul Leader build is just as wrong as going over the CDR cap on the Thor. But you have to look at the whole picture. You got to have survivability on Hunters, right? And for the situation, maybe if you sat down and were able to really look at this game, maybe there was a different item path. I'm not saying this was the only item path, but it's not wrong because the goal was accomplished, right? It was. I don't want to die.
Yeah, I mean, to his credit, he didn't die.
Right.
So,
exactly.
like, clearly it worked.
And if you take a look at, like, I'd like to see how much
they had a
damage he dealt
too. Well, yeah, it would be awesome to see like how much damage the Spirit Robe reduced or something. But if I remember correctly, he did fine on damage. It's just like you're a Thor and you're going into Nuwa, Freya, Surket. Spirit Robe is the perfect item.
Yes. Oh man, I can't find the stats.
I don't know. But so I just thought that was interesting. Obviously, I think Dare made the right choice. Even I think after the game, Omega said something because Omega's reputation is that he builds like 18 defensive items and it's just like, look, I'm unkillable, guys.
Yep.
And he gets top damage and everyone's mad at him, which he didn't in these games. So Omega underperforming, man. But I think Dare like joked about his build. He was like, "Yeah, dude, my build was more broken than yours, Omega." So it was fun. Builds, man. Builds in Smite are really interesting because they're a balance between sort of fulfilling base needs of a role. And then, like, because every item in Smite has a passive, which is very different from League of Legends and a lot more similar to Dota, every item has a passive. Every item does something wacky. So, as long as your builds are fulfilling a very base definition of what your class is supposed to do, there's a lot more room for expression within a professional player's build, which I think is very interesting.
It is. You can't necessarily express yourself on many characters with your build, and I'm not saying that's a negative thing, but
Yeah.
you have sort of like your core, which is 2 to 4 items, and then you have your situationals. So if you take a look at that from on this Thor game, the core is definitely sort of boots, Jotuns, Titans, right? Like those are your core items, I guess you could say. Titan's Bane, of course, comes later. Core not always the early game items, but these are always items you tend to purchase to do what Thor does. Now, the Spirit Robe works. The Mail of Renewal, I guess, is really would that be better off? Because out of Mail of Renewal, you essentially get an item that defends equally against
Right.
magical and physical. What other items do that? So you've got Urchin. How would Urchin stack up to this? Because Urchin and it's not like Urchin is or it's not like Mail of Renewal is a cheap item.
Yeah, Mail of Renewal and Urchin cost roughly the same. It's just sort of a, let me look at the build one more time. So he was up against a Kepri, a Nuwa, a Serket, a Bellona, and a Freya.
Yep. And it was Boots, Jotuns, Mail, Titan's Bane, Spirit Robe, and then Brawler's Beat Stick.
Yeah, so like, I think Mail of Renewal is fantastic here, right? Because he doesn't have a teleport from base. He doesn't have an Athena ult, so being able to sustain up after getting a kill or an assist or an objective
Of course,
is absolutely massive. It's almost incalculable, right? And like, I'd say really the item that eventually gets sold is the Jotuns for something else. Maybe? If anything, right? Like maybe you sell that for Crusher and then pick up a blue buff instead of a speed buff to max your CDR. It's weird. But I think it's also kind of cool that you're getting into a situation where these passives are useful to the point that players are building them when they're kind of inefficient, right? Like,
Right,
you're saying,
right.
well, I'm Thor, so obviously I'm getting Jotuns. But I can't choose between Mail of Renewal and Spirit Robe. In this situation, I need both. And I think that creates for some interesting item building where you are breaking the rules. It's reminiscent to Season 1 Thanatos builds. You're going to be mad about this. But there were two.
I'm going to be mad.
There were two. There was the Pen Boots build, and there was the cooldown reduction build.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
And so he, F-Dot was a big fan of the cooldown reduction build. I like the Pen Boots build. And the idea is that the Pen Boots build, while eventually would be superfluous penetration because of Thanatos' 2, in the early game, it's going to give you a lot of extra penetration and increase the damage of your scythes. Now, the other option is to go for the cooldown reduction build, where in the end you don't end up with these superfluous flat stats. You don't end up overcapped on penetration, but you aren't getting that damage right away. I think it's
as long as we can always agree that attack speed Thanatos is wrong.
Yeah.
That's all that matters to me at this point.
Yes, we can agree about that one. Unless you're soloing.
With cooldown boots off of the table, I now channel all of my hate into people that buy Aussie on Thanatos.
Oh yeah, no, Aussie. Oh. Dude, I know.
But lifesteal.
I don't think there's a good character to buy Aussie on right now. I don't think I would buy Aussie right now.
Yeah.
Because why would I ever not buy Spirit or Soul Eater?
I don't know.
Yeah, I
however,
don't think I would ever buy Aussie. So there you go.
Runic Shield. Does this get HP 5?
Runic Shield doesn't give HP 5. Runic Shield is
It's the
anti-Freya.
Witchblade. It's Witchblade.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think Runic Shield would have been a better choice over the Mail of Renewal if your fights weren't going the way they were going. You know what I mean?
Well, but Witchblade doesn't stack with the Runic Shield.
There is no Witchblade on your team.
No, but Runic Shield attack speed reduction doesn't stack with the Witchblade attack speed reduction. So you don't only get the minus 15 damage, which, like...
There isn't a Witchblade on the team.
No. But so Runic Shield and Witchblade both have an attack speed reduction aura, right?
Yeah.
And Runic Shield reduces magic power, Witchblade reduces physical power.
Mm-hmm.
But their attack speed components don't stack. So you would get a Witchblade, and it would only reduce power by 15, which would only affect Bologna and Serket, and nobody cares when you already have a Runic Shield that's hitting the Freya's attack speed, which is the real thing that you care about.
Of course.
So, like, you're right, but Runic Shield is fulfilling that role. So, like, it's this weird situation where I think 15%, like 55% CDR is the correct option.
It might be.
The only other way is, like,
there is
somehow
no Witchblade
foresee...
on your team, so you're not stacking it. Or you're not stacking it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Zatman and Omega didn't have a Witchblade, so it would just be the Runic Shield.
Right. Yeah, but, like, well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like the only other possible option was an Urchin, but the game... Like, Dare had a total of 13 kills and assists. So Urchin's not going to be fully stacked. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I like Urchin and Runic Shield in that spot, but at the end of the day, he didn't die, and he won, and he wound up with some of the most gold in the game. So you can't you can't argue again. I'm just talking about like sort of
you probably don't want to
optimization.
like plan into a 55% CDR build.
Of course,
but when you
situation,
realize
I
you
don't
need
work
a
in.
spirit robe and you already have a Mail of Renewal, you should get the spirit robe. Because like that's the thing that's going to keep you alive.
Yeah, I like it.
So from a commentator perspective, what do you do when you're encountered with a build like that or a build like anything Aninster buys?
I mean, it's that's always some of my favorite times because like, I mean, I am 100% down to call somebody out when they fuck up. But when it comes to build, you never know. You just can't have that level of insight.
Yeah.
And you just can't. It could be something that those players invented going into this game. So no matter how hard you follow the scene or what you do or your research, you can't always match that. So you have to sort of assume. You don't have to assume, but the benefit of the doubt is pretty much the situation. And it sounds very PR, but it's less about like being nice to the players and more about just like understanding how good the players are.
Yeah, and understanding that a lot of concepts are a little bit older. So, like, Aninster's build, Game 2 against enemies, playing Thor, he goes Boots, Jotuns, Mail of Renewal, Titan's Bane, and everyone can agree with that, right? Like, you get max CDR, you got a Mail of Renewal, you got your Titan's Bane, then he goes Deathbringer. And I think that's the one that raises eyebrows. And you know, like, I might not build it, Dare probably wouldn't build it, but that's actually a throwback to, like, really early Thor play when there were less items in the game, there weren't as many penetration options. So you got a Deathbringer, because if your Deathbringer crits when you, like, randomly swing at somebody, because you're going to hit people with your auto attack 3 times in a fight, maybe. If that crits, you might have gotten a kill that you wouldn't otherwise get. So it's a weird justification, man, but it's there. And for the, like, by and large, in almost every situation, pro players have those justifications. Sometimes things fall through the cracks. I mean, there have been pro players who have built Obsidian Shard on Agni when it's like, you get Spear unless somehow they have 300 magic protections. But aside from, like, the very few, very cut and dry situations...
Like cooldown reduction on Amusing Cop?
Yes. Well...
Last time we had a fight because you were like, cooldown reduction could be useful in Amusing Cop.
I mean, I could see a Jotuns, like, somewhere, you know? Just because, like, you could...
I'm talking full stack CDR.
If you show me a Hydro Cement, I'm with you. Like... yeah, okay, there you go. I think generally you want to look at pro players' builds and be like, okay, I see what they were going for, or try and look at it from that perspective, until you see a Hydrus Lament, and then you go, oh man, what the hell were they smoking?
Exactly. And it's fun for me. Like, it's fun to sit there and be
Yeah.
like, all right, why the fuck would you build this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then you realize, like, I mean, I it's not like there are super deep, hard to understand, like, interactions. So, but it's, I guess I didn't remember that Kronos was an in-hand character. That's why he bought a Witchblade. Right? Like, usually it's a little bit more complicated than that, but
Yeah, and
it's fun to figure out those sort of puzzles.
one of my favorite things about the post-game interview, because it didn't used to be a thing for the longest time, so you'd have to find a way to like ask the pro players themselves. I remember a long time ago, 2 years ago, Andy was playing a lot of Thor because he's always played Thor. And he used to build Heartseeker every game. Back when COG was winning every game. And I was like, yo, Andy, why do you buy Heartseeker? And he's like, well, man, between my ult and my 1, I feel like I won't die. So I get a Heartseeker. It's like, word. And because he was still jungling Thor. Like, it's still like the old 50-stack Heartseeker jungle where, like, it's gonna take you a while to get that stack. But he felt like he wouldn't die, so there you go.
I like Heartseeker.
For the record, I don't think I've seen a Hydra's Lament in the SPL. But if I did... maybe Jermaine was build it. So let's talk about trolling real quick. It happened at the end of Myrmidons versus Paradigm, I think.
Paradigm, yep.
Jermaine did something like dashed into the enemy team, mezzed and backed, which was not a good play. There were no Krakens involved. It seems pretty clear that he was trolling. It's kind of shitty, but his team probably yelled at him, and like
exactly
everyone knows it's shitty.
Yeah, he did one of those, and then like he's in the fountain, he ulted, and he landed in the fountain. Like he was just creating nonsense.
Yeah. So
and at the core of it, so it's bullshit to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's bullshit to do, and it really doesn't help anybody. So it's against the rules. So he broke the fucking rules.
Yeah.
He'll get in trouble, and I don't think he'll do it again. That's my entire. I know it's a scalding hot take, folks. I know that you guys were expecting some intense argument here, but like, homie was dumb, broke the rules. I'm sure he won't do it again. I don't think he's a bad dude.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to be like hardcore about it, Cloud9 at LAN, I think after Titan came back like last year, the famous Titan comeback from 2 Phoenixes down.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Optics who like started like split push Janusing and just basically trolling. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like you're not gonna have a career after that. No one's gonna play with you.
I guess.
So,
I mean, yeah.
Because if I remember correctly, he was like actually trolling. Like he just wasn't talking and he was just split pushing. But so maybe it speaks to like the sort of player who might do something like that. But at the same time,
look at all the EU guys going, nah, he wasn't trolling. That's just optics. He thinks he could split push on Giannis, which is why I answered so wishy-washy because I didn't know the story. And like,
it's not trolling. It's actually just like he thought he was right. Well,
yeah,
shit, that's a different example, I guess.
I mean, that's just oh well. But like the thing with Jermaine, honestly, it doesn't. So like it's against the rules because of like the snowball effect, right? If you don't have that in the rules, then much more egregious scenarios can happen.
Yeah,
if that game
totally.
was over, Paradigm was winning. You want to, in fact, like Paradigm was winning. That game was over. There was no way Mirrodins were going to take it. You want to like ult up in the air while the Titan's falling. Like, that's a situation. I'm not an admin, but if I was in a league, that's the situation where I'm like, oh, the Titan was falling and you're a single Apollo and you go in the air. Oh well, right? You can't really ignore the middle of the pack Mez run away. But the game was over. Whatever. It doesn't offend me, but he has to get in trouble, otherwise bigger things can happen. It opens the door for other shit, right?
It's on the gray line between like actually trolling and throwing a game and jumping into the fountain right before you kill the enemy Titan.
Exactly.
There's no tactical reason to jump in the fountain. You just wanted to do that because it was fun.
So I don't think he's a bad dude. I think this is a much different
Yeah.
scenario than like, you know, troll it like when the game is close or winnable and you're intentionally feeding. I think it's a different type of trolling, but like still something that, you know, by the letter of the law, you have to get in trouble because if not, it opens up the door to bigger things. So I think this is a situation, and Jermaine has always been straight up with me. I haven't spoken to him about this situation, but I've always liked Jermaine. I've talked to him a decent amount, and like, I'm sure he'll be like, oh shit, okay, I won't do it again.
Yeah.
And when he won't do it again, I think that's the real situation. Like,
You got anything else?
no, that's it really. I mean, you know, Jermaine, it sucks, but I don't think it'll happen again. I don't think it's anything to really like start the sirens and grab pitchforks for. I think it's just sort of a one-time deal. Congrats to Envy, previously AFK. They've sort of stepped it up, or at least ascended to a bigger name organization, which should hopefully bring bigger things to them. They're very successful dudes. I'm proud, right?
Yeah, awesome for them. They're still AFK to me. And you know, hopefully they get a manager who can wake up Allied.
Yeah, that's really it. Other than that, I think it's just cool stuff. We'll see what happens to TSM next week if they can continue doing what they did in the COD game, not the Elevate game.
Yeah, no. Well, so Elevate, man, maybe they can ruin some more dreams. That
I think
Elevate's at the point where they can't really escape 8th or 7th. They're probably not going to Super Regionals, but they can crush some dreams. So good luck, Elevate.
Uh-huh.
Alright, guys, that's our show. I just got a Tinder match, so I just gotta hit her back up, and I'm gonna go do that. You guys have fun. See you next time. Peace.
Peace.